you can actually hear the dissenting voices now. 2-3 years ago, I mean, it was like a pin dropping. There were almost no dissenting voices. And when someone did dissent, just even stuff that defies common sense in terms of how simple it is. Like, oh, maybe the kids should be in school, and maybe it doesn't make sense to try and keep like a piece of fabric over a little child's mouth. Or maybe it's okay to still spend time with people you care about and love, and spend time doing things you enjoy doing and are good for your spiritual and emotional health. Just things that are just so true on their face. The world erupted. And Governor DeSantis the whole world really is grateful that he held his positions over things that made sense to him, and in fact made sense to a lot of people inside, even though they weren't vocal, when everyone was having a spasm over just the simplest drop of common sense. So I'm immensely grateful to him. I know that you all are too, and it's important to keep in perspective exactly what happened, because one of the things that the media they're just so brilliant. I mean, it's almost, I mean, it's so sinister how good they are at this, is recreating reality. So, I'm talking about the governor. I'll take a moment to talk about myself. Just recently, I've seen sort of this spate of news articles about me and a letter we wrote to the CDC and the FDA about their mRNA COVID-19 vaccines and their safety, or frankly, their lack thereof. And so the CDC and the FDA, their heads, send this letter. I don't know, 50 different news stations carry their response, and how the doctors, Dr. Latipo is wrong. So just to come back to reality a little bit. So I went to med school. I got a PhD in research science while I was in medical school. Went to a place called Harvard. Not as cool as it used to be. My wife and I were talking on the way up here that we're not even sure we would send our kids there, because they're indoctrination factories, and we're raising our kids to be resistant to that stuff. But you don't really want to drop your kids in an environment where they've got to have their shields up all the time because people are trying to indoctrinate them from left, right, and center. But yeah, and I was a tenured faculty member at UCLA. I'm now a tenured faculty member at University of Florida. All of that is to say, I know what I'm talking about. I've spent some time in this area, and going back to the past, right, and looking at how things happened at this 3-year anniversary. So the reality is that, and I don't even care about vindication. I care about doing what's right. But the reality is, and you'll never hear this, the reality is that Florida and Governor DeSantis' leadership and the decisions that he made for this state and the direction that this state went was absolutely correct. I mean, if you're looking for vindication, you can find it abundantly here. He was absolutely correct. It was the right decision to get the kids back in school. It was harmful to the kids to keep them out of school. It was the right decision to encourage people to do what they want based on their tolerance for risk, their preferences, their values, who they wanted to spend time with. That was the right decision. And the bill has come due for a lot of that stuff where states went the opposite direction in terms of mental health harms, in terms of alcohol and other substance abuse. So that was the right decision. When we made the decision to stop the crazy testing, and you had folks in nursing homes struggling to find tests, and then healthy 20-year-olds with their iPod headphones in, waiting in line to get a test. I mean, when we said, look, you're healthy, you don't need a test. You're low risk. That's not the right way to spend your resources. Everyone got upset. That was the right decision, and that's what more states are doing now. The list goes on in terms of the decisions. Very clearly, the vaccine putting a kibosh on the vaccine mandates and the passports was the right decision. And never mind the fact that we have a president who promised he wouldn't mandate them, you know, out of this side of his face, and then out of the other side of his face said he would mandate them and everyone had to get them in the military and all this other crazy stuff. That was the right decision. And he did, and Governor DeSantis stood against that, even though every voice was saying that he should do it. And he stood against that. And what do we have now? You know, now that the dust has settled, we have a vaccine, an mRNA COVID-19 vaccine, that has a terrible safety profile. I mean, that is the truth. The media, they work overtime to rewrite reality, to make people believe that what is happening isn't actually happening. These vaccines have a terrible safety profile. At this point in the pandemic, you know, I'm not sure anyone should be taking them. And that's, you know, that is the honest truth. I don't think anyone probably should be taking them. They have a terrible safety profile. You know? Yeah. And we have, unfortunately, a CDC and FDA who just the most consistent thing they've done is deny the truth. Whether it was pushing masks, I mean, they did squat. I mean, they did not have any substantial impact, no benefit. Pushing masks, pushing the vaccines in little kids, all these low-value, divisive policies that they did. Meanwhile, here's the truth, right? You look at these studies of the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. There was a study published a few weeks ago in a journal called Lancet, a great, you know, a journal that's well known, I should say. And you know, what did these authors show? They showed that after 7 months, the protection for infection, right? It started, I don't know, around 70%, down. At 7 months, it hops onto the other side of the axis, right? So it is negative, and that continues, and that the magnitude of that negativity increases over time. What does that mean, folks? It literally means that the people who received that vaccine were more likely to contract COVID-19 after 7 months than the people who did not. That is a fact. Has the CDC or FDA ever said a word about that? No. So these guys are, unfortunately, they're geniuses at rewriting reality. But the reality is that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Walensky, Dr. Califf at the FDA, these individuals have been making decisions that I don't know what the hell they're prioritizing, but it is not your well-being, it's not my well-being, it's someone else's agenda. And that's unfortunate, and that's not something that we're doing here in Florida, not under the governor, not under the Florida Department of Health. So yes, we are vindicated, whether or not people want to admit that or not. The decisions that we made prioritizing the fact that people are people and humans should be respected for their preferences and their ability to make decisions, those were the right things to do. We're vindicated, and the fight isn't over. So yes, we're here talking about COVID-19, but the rewriting of reality to control your behavior and to control your thoughts and your beliefs, it is an ongoing battle that they are waging. We're fighting on the fronts of gender dysphoria. These people want to make you believe that kids should have sex organs removed and receive completely experimental therapies that are very risky in terms of these hormone blockers. Like, that's the reality. Every article you read in the Associated Press or NBC, CBS, New York Times, what they like to say is that, oh, every scientific body in the United States supports these, thinks this is what you should be doing for children. The reality is that you look across the Atlantic in countries in Europe, guess what they're doing? They've gone the exact opposite direction. They've pulled back on these procedures because they are finding that essentially the risks are outweighing the benefits. They pulled back. Do any of these articles ever mention that? They don't mention that because they're not prioritizing the truth. They're prioritizing, again, I don't know whose agenda it is, but it's not the agenda of you or me or our children. Okay? So Yes, it's victory, but the battle is still ongoing. It's a battle over our thoughts and our beliefs. And here, we believe you can believe what you want. Our job is to supply you with truth, and we're going to keep doing that.
All right.